all of that become cause and conditions to actualize the whole Lamrim realizations within each and every sentient being's mind stream. May the cause conditions to inspire us, to encourage us to become more compassionate, more kind, more patient, more self-discipline and sense of contentment. At least may by hearing those teachings, may the imprint be left in our mind so it becomes easy to understand and to practice and to have realization in the future. And may it become cause and condition to actualize our highest potential, fully awakened state, so we can be greatest help and benefit to each and every sentient being. Okay. To the founder, the endowed, non-standard destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the complete, perfect, fully awake being, perfect knowledge, adequate conduct, Sukarno of the world, supreme guide for human beings to be tamed, teachers of God and human beings to you, the complete and the fully awakened one, the endowed, non-standard destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering, go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, non-standard destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfect, fully awakened, perfect knowledge and adequate conduct. Sugata, know the world, supreme guide of human beings, be tamed, teachers of God and human beings to you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed, outstanding destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering, go for it. To the founder, the endowed, outstanding destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfect, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme guide for human beings, be tamed, teachers of God and human beings to you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed, outstanding destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering and go for refuge. So she be chung shin me to ta re ra le ji yin den gen pa di sang ge shin du mi de wa do kun namanda shin la chu pa sho yi dam ku da nam da ma ga ni ta ya. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become Buddha in order to benefit all sentients. Sangye chodan soge sonam ma chanjo bado dani gan. Dagi sheshe gibe sonam gen, dola penche sangye rupa. Sangye chodan soge sonam ma chanjo bado dani. Geshe give Sona Ola and Jason give So we have been discussing through this particular text by Adisha, the land to path of the enlightenment, and which the very root of all the others, lumbering texts such as Lama Tsongkhapa, Great, Middle, Small, as well as lumbering by Fifth Dalai Lama, Third Dalai Lama, as well as by two of the mentioned lamas, and as well as the perfect of my in Nyingma traditions, the perfect of my teachers, in Kagyu, the ornament of liberations. All these different teachings of Lamrim, they all are rooted in this Lama Tsongkhapa's text. It's very important text. So, and again, within that, the practice of, initial practice, the middle practice, and the great practice of great scope, and within the great scope, then the Bodhisattva path practice. Then last time we finished, about the verses that describe about cultivating the aspiring Bodhicitta mind, and then taking the aspiring Bodhicitta precepts of the vows, and then having taken Bodhicitta precept and then aspiring Bodhicitta precept and vows, then taking those precepts, and engage in practice in order to sustain and maintain the Bodhicitta mind in this life, so that we don't, whatever Bodhicitta mind we have generated, that it does not degenerate, deteriorate, as well as how to and increase and how to maintain, through the practice, of the Bodhicitta from deteriorating in the futures, in the future lives, so that we can continue to make progress life after life, the Bodhicitta to become more stronger and stronger, and then, supporting all other Bodhisattva practices through that strong Bodhicitta mind. So we kind of completed up to that verse, which is like verse number 18, and we are on verse number 19. From here, then it describes about the engaging Bodhicitta mind and cultivating engaging Bodhicitta mind and engaging Bodhisattva's vows, So that is where it comes. So after cultivating the aspiring Bodhicitta mind and taking the aspiring Bodhicitta vows, then next step is engaging in the cultivating the engaging Bodhicitta mind and taking the engaging Bodhicitta vows. They are slightly different according to slightly different commentaries. There are slightly different differences between aspiring Bodhicitta and engaging Bodhicitta mind. Like if you see in Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Life, he gives an example of the wish to go and the actual act of going. It's like aspiring and engaging Bodhicitta mind. And so that means, the wish to achieve enlightenment in order to be greatest benefit to all sentient beings is aspiring Bodhicitta mind. And engaging Bodhicitta mind is driven by the aspiring Bodhicitta mind. Not only you have inspirations, the wish to achieve enlightenment, now you actually engage into the practice in the path itself through the practice of 6 perfection or 10 perfections. So you actually start making the progress or start walking through that. And then according to some others commentaries, and sometimes I think His Holiness also rely on that also, those commentaries, your bodhicitta, when you're engaging bodhicitta vows, then your bodhicitta become engaging bodhicitta. Before you take that vows, then it's aspiring bodhicitta, because you haven't taken the bodhisattva's vows itself. Once you take the bodhisattva vows, then it becomes engaging. Your bodhicitta become engaging bodhicitta. So slightly, that is the difference between what is aspiring bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta, because we are talking about those two, In terms of that, then, since one need to take engaging bodhisattva vows, why we need to take engaging bodhisattva vows? Why do we need to take engaging bodhisattva vows? And then, who can take those bodhisattva's vows? Who can take those bodhisattva vows? And from whom we take the bodhisattva vows? And through what kind of ceremony or ritual we take the bodhisattva vows? So here, Adisha explained those points, okay? So first, the reason why one need to, So if you go to verse number 19, without the vows engaged intention, here referring to bodhicitta, engaged intention or engaging bodhicitta mind, perfect aspiration will not grow, Even though we have cultivated aspiring bodhicitta mind, even though we have cultivated aspiring bodhicitta mind, if you don't take the bodhicitta, if you don't take the aspiring, engaging bodhisattva vows and engage in that practice, then your aspiring bodhicitta cannot, make progress or get better to grow to a limitless, it cannot improve and progress and develop to a point it become, limitless, endless. And the way to increase our aspiring bodhicitta mind, the way to develop that aspiring bodhicitta mind to limitless and endless potential of that bodhicitta mind is through having taken the engaging bodhisattva vows. So that is why we need to take, Therefore, here it says, that being the case, make effort definitely to take it, since you want the wish for enlightenment to grow, Since we all not only want to have just aspiring bodhicitta mind, but we want that aspiring bodhicitta mind to grow and develop, and not only develop, fully grown to that kind of limitless bodhicitta mind of fully enlightened beings, from seed to its fully potential state, So since we wish to do that, and therefore we must put all the effort to generate, to take the engaging bodhisattva vows, So that is the advice, instructions. Mm. And as Shandeva give that example, if you want to go to the town to do a shopping, because you need to do some shopping, and if you need to go to there to fulfill your wish, it's not enough just to have the inspiration, the wish to go there. You have to make effort and actually start going there to fulfill your aspiration, to fulfill your wish. In the same way, inspiring Bodhicitta mind is the wish to go there, to do the shopping, to do the errands, and to be benefit to sentient beings and to achieve enlightenment. And then in order to fulfill that wish, that inspiration, then you actually need to go there. And going there is the engaging bodhicitta mind, in practicing, training in engaging bodhicitta mind. And in order to have that engaging bodhicitta mind and training bodhicitta mind, then one need to take, and in order to fulfill the whatever aspirations and wishes that you have, then one need to take the vows, the engaging bodhicitta vows. So that is the reason why we need to take this. And then who can take those bodhicitta vows? Who are suitable to take those bodhicitta vows generally? So then here it says, those who maintain any of the 7 kinds of individual liberation vows have the ideal prerequisite for bodhisattva vows, not the others. Not others means others who does not maintain the 7 kind, one of the 7 kind of individual liberation vows, Pratimosha vows. So when we talk about 7 kind of individual liberation vows or Pratimosha vows, like in terms of lay, there is a, we call upasaka, taking the lay vows, so there is male and female, upasaka, upasiki and upasaka, so then in terms of ordinations, there is novice, monks and nuns, so those are 4. Then, in terms of nuns, before they take full ordinations, there is another vows in between, Gelobma, and that vows, and there are 5. And then, full ordination vows for nuns and monks. So that there is 2. So it becomes 7. Those are the 7 kind of individual liberation vows. Yeah, did you get it? There are 5 for the ordained, and there is 2 for the lay practitioners, so those are others. So to take a bodhisattva vows, do really one have to have any of those vows? Do one really need to have any of the vows? Then it says, if you have any of those individual liberation vows or Pratimosha vows, that will be the ideal, that will be the best. Okay. But even if you have not taken the actual vow itself, but at least you need to have similar mind, in a sense, at least the practice to abandon the 10 non-virtuous actions and to engage the 10 virtuous actions. At least you need to have that as a foundations. And that is, in a lot of those vows, that is how it should be, it's a gradual, it's a gradual. Even within the individual liberation vows, a lot of time, first you take a leg vow. Then if you're a monk, then you take the novice vow. And when the time comes, when you are ready, then you take the full ordinations, gradually. If it's a female, then you take the and then lay vows, then novice vows as a nun, and then in the medium vows, and then full ordinations, gradual. And then once we have taken the refuge and the lay vows, then next step is the Bodhisattva vows. And having trained in Bodhisattva vows, having taken the vows and trained, and then if you feel ready after some time, then taking the tantric vows, those different levels of the vows, so that is kind of progressively that. So anyway, so that is, so even someone does not have any of those 7 vows, at least they need to have similar similar precept of practice, such as the practice of moral discipline, of abandoning or refraining from 10 non-virtuous action and engaging in 10 virtuous actions. That's the very basic in order to. And therefore, like as part of ceremony, when you take a Bodhisattva vows, whether it is when you take initiations or you just take a Bodhisattva vows, first they give the refuge vows, and then on the basis of that, then refuge, and if someone wanted to take lay vows, and then you want in the Bodhisattva vows. So that is the way it is. And then among them, among all these 7 different kind of liberation, individual liberation vows or Pratimoksha vows, among them, which is the best, ideal, in order to take the, having 7 or any of them is ideal, but among them, which is the ideal, and then that's what he's saying. Next one, the Tathagata spoke of 7 kind of individual liberation vows. The best of this is glorious pure conduct, said to be a vow of fully ordained persons. So among them, the fully ordinations is the most ideal and the best. As Buddha's Tathagata Buddha has spoken in the sutras, so the best is the full ordination. The next is the kind of the ordinations, and then the others. That is kind of, again, in general, and that is why, in terms of even kind of, the ordination monks and nuns, they have to, pay homage, bow, prostrate to those full ordinations because of their higher vows. And those full ordinations, among full ordinations, then again, who is the more senior in terms of who took the full ordination earlier, then they have to bow, pay respect, and prostrate. That's the general kind of the instructions, advice the Buddha gave within the Sangha, And so, and then next is taking the vows. When you are taking the vow, from whom we should take the vows, and what is the rituals or the ceremonies. So then there are 2 different kind of rituals, ceremony, and from one ceremony ritual is to take the vows from a person, a master, and there is another rituals and ceremony. If you cannot find such master, even when you try very hard to find, if you cannot find such qualified teachers, master, then you can take the Bodhisattva vows, engaging Bodhisattva vows from the holy objects, such as statues, stupas from elder, and like that, or without actual master person there, you can take. And so that is where, and so first, so then that is first he explained about, from whom and how to take the mochida vows when there is a master. So then, according to the 22, according to the ritual described in the chapter of discipline in the Bodhisattva stages. So there is one particular text by great Indian master, Asanga, okay? And he wrote a text on the Bodhisattva path, which is called Bodhisattva stage, the stages of Bodhisattvas, Changsa, in Tibetan is Changsa, Chang is Bodhisattva and Sa is the stages or the bhumi, or the ground, so he wrote, and Asanga is in a human form, he is known to carry all the method lineage practice, he's the Nagarjuna carry all the wisdom lineage teachings, and Asanga is the one who carry all the method side of the teachings, such as loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, bodhisattva path. And so he wrote that, and within that there are many chapters, and there is one chapter on the moral discipline, or the chapter on discipline, Within that there is one chapter of moral discipline, which means the bodhisattva's moral discipline, bodhisattva vows, bodhisattva vows, bodhisattva moral discipline. There's one chapter, and in that chapter then he described about what kind of teacher, qualified teacher, master, from should we receive such bodhisattva vows. And so that is where, so in that, take the vows from a good and well-qualified spiritual teacher. So one should take the bodhisattva, engaging bodhisattva vows from someone, a qualified, a spiritual teacher or master who is qualified, who is good. So what do we mean by qualified? Such masters or good. And so then he describes some of the quality that master need to have in order to be qualified master or teacher to give that bodhisattva vows. And so that is where the next verse comes, 20, if you read in 23, understand that a good spiritual teacher, so qualified good spiritual teacher who can give the vows, need quality, is one, skill in vow ceremony. So one qualification that teacher need is that he or she is expert in how to run or how to give the ceremony, who know exactly the ceremony very well, the ceremony very well. Also, other quality is he who lives by the vows and has. Someone who has taken, he or she, the teacher who have already taken the vows themselves. They need to have the vow themselves. Who have taken the vows and who live by the vows, who have not totally broken them, or where the vows are not, where the vows has no downfall, but who have not only taken the vows, but who continue to maintain the vows. That quality is needed in order to someone to give such bodhisattva vows, that teacher.
I'm getting thoughts. Eat that alone. We're not going to eat that now. Oscar. We're not eating that now.
Okay.
And then the other qualities is the confidence and compassion to bestow it. here is confidence, but in Tibetan is also being patient. Someone who is patient. Patience with the students, not being easily discouraged and give up, because maybe some students are not bright enough. Maybe some students have not so strong, who doesn't get easily, understand easily. So therefore it is required to explain many times with many different reasoning, different logic, different examples, and like that. So not being easily kind of being discouraged, therefore having patience, and then having compassion to the disciple student to whom the vows bestowed. So having compassion. So if the teacher had all these qualities, all these 4 qualities here is described, then Asanga says if anyone has those qualities, then that teacher is qualified to give such vows, and one should receive from such master or teacher the vows. Okay, so so I guess maybe I don't need to go through the whole ceremony itself at the moment. And the next one is explaining, even you try very hard, even you put a lot of effort to find such a qualified teacher from whom you can receive the engagement vows, but somehow if you cannot find such a master, such a teacher, can someone be able to take both vows? And then here, Adisha is saying it's possible, even after putting a lot of effort to find such qualified people, you cannot find such qualified teacher, masters, then without in person, then you can take from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. By invoking Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, you invoke them, and then you take from the holy, image, whether you have a statue, stupas, tangas, pictures, from that, by invoking. And so now he's going to explain about that, how to take if you cannot find that teachers, And then within that, first, he's saying he's not making up such a traditions, or he's saying it is, there is a authentic sources from the sutras, such ceremony, that to take the vows, and then the actual ceremony or the actual ceremony of taking vows itself. So in two sections. And in first, then he says, if you go to the verse number 24, next one. However, in case you try but cannot find such a spiritual teachers, it's not like, you don't try, you really try, you make a lot of effort trying to find if there is such a master and teacher who can give you such a important both of the vows, such an important both of the vows, and even you have full effort and even you have tried all your best, in case you cannot find it, then even that case, then there's even way to take the vows, even if you cannot find such teachers. And then here say, Adisha saying, I shall explain another correct procedure for taking the vows. So he said, he will going to explain another procedure of taking the vows, different, without depending on the actual spiritual master or the spiritual teacher or master itself. So, and that one you can also do not only to take at the very beginning for the first time, but also when you renew it, when you renew it, it's best if we can renew from a qualified spiritual master and teachers. But if you cannot find, even after trying, if we cannot find a qualified spiritual teacher or master, then we can renew ourselves. The vows we have already taken, we can renew that ourselves by invoking Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and from the holy, holy objects, we can renew it. And you can renew every day. You can renew every day, And His Holiness mentions, he renew every day. He renew the vows every day, every day. I mean, if His Holiness is renewing every day, I think there's no doubt we need to renew that every day, And I try to renew every day as much as possible, as myself. So that would be wonderful if we're able to renew that every day. Those who have already taken, And this is also one beauty of the Bodhisattva vows, Tantric vows is hard to renew, Either you have to take Hatha Yoga initiations, or you have to do self-initiations. And the self-initiations require a lot of things, and it's a much more, extensive ceremony. And in order to do self-initiation, also you need to do the required retreat and everything. Unless you have done all of that, then you cannot do the self-initiation. So it's much more not so easy. And also in terms of the, individual liberation vows, also, some of them you need to do within the Sangha community, to renew them. That is why for the monks and nuns, they have purification ceremony twice every month, full moon and new moons. So you have to do that within the community in the Sangha, And both sort of vows is the most easy in terms of that, that you can easily renew yourself. You can easily renew yourself in terms of renewing it. So anyway, so that is. So the next 25, you see, I shall write here very clearly, so Adisha is saying, he's going to write here, clearly with the details, as explained in the ornament of Manjushri Buddha Land Sutra. So the source of, the authentic source of taking was the vows without a spiritual master or teacher that you find in that sutra. In terms of sutra, you find that, the ornament of Manjushri Buddha's land. And then in that sutra, it explained how long ago, when Manjushri was, King Abaranza, long time ago, as an ordinary being, Manjushri, when he was born as a King Abaranza at a certain time, he arose the intention to become enlightenment. He cultivated the engaging Bodhicitta mind. And having engaged the Bodhicitta mind, then he took the he took the engaging both the vows, and where he took, so then in next, in the presence of protectors, the Buddha, there was a name, a Buddha named, mm, mm, the roar of dragon. So there is a Buddha whose name was, in Tibetan, Sangye Dukta. Sangye is Buddha, Dukta is the roar of the dragon. So, and that is just a name. So the Buddha's particular Buddha. So that is the protector. From there, I arose the intention to gain full enlightenment. And by inviting, I invite all beings I may guest and shall free them from the cycle existence. So then, so that is how he took. And so when we take the vows, this is one example of how you can take vows. So in terms of the ceremony itself, there are many different the wordings to taking the both of the vows. There are many, very extensive, short, and very short. There are many different verses that one can use. For example, you can use from the Shantideva's guys, both of way of life. There are, 3-4 verses there. You can use that. You can use Asanga's, the extensive ceremony you find in that particular text that he composed. That you can find that extensive ceremony that Asanga wrote in Lamsong Gaba's great Lamrim as well. So there is a great ceremony, and then like FMD has this both of the vows at the end of them. There is one verses, so which is quite short, So there are many different verses one can use. But here, in here, the verse one can be, in the presence of protectors. So invoke all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. You invoke all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, And then, after you invoke the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as a witness and as an object from whom, you from whom you take the vows, and then you say, for example, it's just an example, the all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, please pay attention to me, so requesting that, and then you generate a bodhicitta mind, as it says, I arose the intention to gain full enlightenment. You try to spend little time to cultivate the bodhicitta mind as much as possible, according to your capacity, your ability, trying to feel the bodhicitta mind as much as possible by contemplating, meditating on that. You can do extensive meditation, you can do medium, or you can do short meditations, but just try to feel the bodhicitta mind, And once you have bodhicitta mind, then, I invite all beings and my guests. So just as when you invite your guests and lead them to the feast and feed them whatever they want, if they want to drink something, whatever they want to drink, you provide them whatever food they want. So just as that, in the same way, then, by inviting all the sentient beings as your guests, then, leading them to all the happiness that they want, their needs, temporary and ultimate happiness, leading them towards that, providing that, In order to do that, then, so I shall free them from cyclic existence, to liberate them from the samsara and cause of samsara, and to lead them to the ultimate happiness of fully enlightenment. While you try to cultivate that bodhicitta mind, and then you can recite that verse 3 times, And when there is a real master, you actually repeat after the master itself, the ceremony. But when you don't have the real master, then you imagine you are repeating after the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas from whom you are trying to receive. You think and imagine they are reciting the ceremony, and you are repeating after them, and you do 3 times. And at the third levels, At the third level, then that is when the most important part, whether you are renewing or whether you are taking, is at the third part of repetitions or visualizing and repeating 3 times. And the third, at the end of that, then you imagine, think, and visualize and feel that you have received the vows, or you have renewed the vows. That is the important part of that ceremony, whether you are taking it for the first time or whether you are renewing it, to really visualize, imagine, think, and feel that either you receive it or you have renewed it. If you are renewing it, that is important. Okay, and of course, before that, then possibly, the best, take refuge in bodhicitta, the prayer that we do every day, all the time, 3 times, trying to do the refuge in bodhicitta. If possible, do the 4 immeasurable and 7 practice. You can do short 7 limb practice, even you don't have time to do extensive. And you do the short mandala offerings, and then you do this actual ceremony of taking or renewing it. And then after you have renewed it, or after you have taken it and renewed it, then you rejoice. You rejoice, You rejoice it, and then you do the dedications, and then you complete the ceremony. You start with the motivations, and you go refuge and bodhicittas, 4 immeasurable, 7 limb, and then the actual ceremony, and then you end with the dedications. So that is the ceremony, and then you often see when there's a little bit more extensive, verse, then there's sometimes you see those not being liberated. May I be able to liberate those being not liberated. May I be able to free them, those not being free. May I able to break them, those not unable to break. May I be able to lead them to the state beyond sorrow. Those who are in sorrowless, beyond sorrowless, to the sorrowless state, from the beyond the sorrow, to the sorrowless state. And in that you see that verses very often when we take the initiations and part of many of the taking the vows. So in that, the first one, to liberate from the sufferings, those who are not being liberated from the suffering. And second one, such as the 4 river of sufferings. The second one, those not being free, to free them from the bondage of the cause of the suffering, the delusion and the karma, and those those who are not being unable to breathe, may I be able to lead him to breathe, is, yeah. Those who are in low rebirth and experience suffering the low rebirth and therefore unable to breathe of the happiness, may I be able to, help them to breathe free from the low rebirth and suffering, and lead them to be able to breathe high rebirth and the happiness of high. And then those who are in sorrow, beyond sorrow, to the soulless state, is to the then non-abiding liberations, the Buddhahood. So again, so we can again, that as a ceremony, you see that verse and you can use that as well. So that is about the ceremony itself, okay, up to the 26th, verse number 26. No, yeah. Then once you have taken the vows, first aspiring both to the vow, and then engaging both the vows, then training into the path, the Bodhisattva path, training into the precept, training into the, so training yourself, to keep those precepts and the vows, and so then, there's the next one, that is what it is, and within that, training the vows, the moral discipline of the Bodhisattvas, of the vows. There are three, there are three types of Bodhisattva moral discipline. The Bodhisattva's moral discipline of protecting from the misdeeds, protecting from the misdeed, the moral discipline of protecting or reframing or restraining from the misdeeds, harmful deeds. And then there is a training in the moral discipline of Bodhisattvas, of helping and benefiting others. And there is training in moral discipline of the Bodhisattvas, of, Duba, is engaging or contensing all other virtues, contensing other virtues, so there are three kind of those training in moral Bodhisattva's moral discipline. And then in terms of the first moral discipline of protecting or restraining or reframing from the harmful misdeeds, and so then that is where next one, from this moment onward, so from this moment, from the very moment that I have taken the Bodhisattva vows, from that very moment. The very moment here means from the very moment that we have taken the Bodhisattva vows, the precepts, okay? Until attain enlightenment, until we achieve fully enlightenment. So again, the difference between the refuge and the refuge vows, as well as lay vows, especially lay vows, those so-called as 7 kind of Pratimoksha vows or self-liberation vows. Those vows are for lifetime. When you take the vows, we say, from now on, as long as I live. probably, many of you, if you remember the ceremony, that is from now on, as long as I live. So those vows are lifetime vows. But the Bodhicitta vows is for all the lives of, we take for not only just one lifetime, until we take it for until we achieve enlightenment. So in a way, is really, even when we feel we are not ready for the Bodhicitta vows, I think it might be good to take it, because we might have already taken in the past, even though we don't remember it, and the vows are still there. And if the vow is still there, if we have taken in the past, it is still there, and we don't know we have taken, and then we might be breaking all the times. You know, we don't have that danger with the other Pradhamasha vows, but with the Bodhisattva vows, because we have taken for lifetime, so it is always there. And so therefore, it's good to, even from that perspective, I think it's more safe, and to take and to renew and trying to keep it as much as possible. So that is why it says, from this moment onward until I attain enlightenment, we take the Bodhisattva vows until we achieve fully enlightenment. Therefore, I shall not harbor harmful thoughts, anger, avarice, and envy. Therefore, we make a strong intention, resolution, commitment, that I will try all my best. I will try my best not to have any kind of, ill will feeling, harmful thoughts towards others. That means wishing others pain, suffering, bad, And we have to be very careful, especially when you are watching a news, you hear all kind of things happening in the world that trigger your mind, upset your mind. And sometimes without knowing, we might wish someone, miseries, bad things, And so when we have that kind of ill will feeling, harmful thoughts, then it goes against the Bodhisattva's vows, precepts. When we take the vows and vows to help and benefit all sentient beings. When you take vows to help and benefit all sentient beings, how can we wish any bad to someone else? How can we wish any suffering to someone? That is against the wish to be benefit and to help, and the wish to see someone suffer or wishing someone a pain, miserable, is a contradiction, an opposite, and therefore, we have to be mindful all the time. When you are not mindful, especially, I think we have to be especially mindful when you are watching, listening news, because that is when it triggers your mind. You hear some people's, whether it's a leader or whether it's just ordinary individuals, for whatever reasons, who are being cruel and mean and unkind and harming others, then that can trigger our mind, because we are ordinary beings. We are not fully enlightened beings. We are not bodhisattvas. We wish to be bodhisattvas. We are trying to be better persons. We are trying to be more compassionate persons. We are trying to be more kind persons. That is why we take the vows. That is why we try to practice. It is because we want to be like them, and we are trying to be that. But the reality is not over us, at least me, is not there. And when you're not there, we make mistake. Delusions arises. And sometimes we are not even aware. Sometimes we are not even aware. And so it is important to be more mindful and be watchful. And the moment, if you, through mindfulness, watchfulness, vigilant, if you are able to catch up when you have such a negative thoughts, such as a harmful, evil feelings, wishing someone miserable, you catch up and say, "Oh, I shouldn't have that thought." Is against my bodhicitta mind. Is against the bodhisattva vows. Is against whom I'm trying to be. And therefore, then once you notice, then you try to, transform your thoughts. I wish that person's peace, happiness. I wish that person's find inner peace, that he or she doesn't have to hurt others. I wish that person happiness, inner peace, that he or she doesn't have to hurt and harm others, that he or she doesn't have to be so cruel and mean to others. I wish he can cultivate love, compassion, patience, all these qualities. So we transform, we try to make little effort to wish them happiness, peace, and goodness. And that is how we train our mind slowly. If we keep on doing that, one time, two times, three times, and slowly, our mind become more and more used to that way of thinking, that way of attitude, and then it become more and more easy, and then it become, you don't have to be so watchful, mindful all the time, because your mind automatically go in that state, because repeating and training over the times. A lot of physical things that we do now, we don't even have to think with your hands, and those just go automatic. Is instinct automatic, because this is something you have been so used to it. And so same thing, the mind is same way. When we keep on trying and repeat that with the time, then it becomes more and more easier and more spontaneous, more and more natural and instinct, without much effort. So that is the harmful thought, harmful thought, anger, anger is again, very kind of, it's not a gentle attitude, it's a very harsh, rough attitude. Anger is very, very rough and very, very harsh attitude, mind, Anger lead to hatred. Anger lead to resentment. Anger lead to harmful thoughts, ill will feelings, And so therefore, again, and anger is the opposite of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, So it is good every day that we make that kind of commitment every day. Throughout today, I will try all my best not to allow myself to be in the state of ill will feelings, anger, or avarice or miserliness, where you are holding very tightly, grasping very tightly, and not wanting to share, not wanting to keep, not wanting to share and give, because again, when you are training to in a bodhisattva path, when you're training in bodhicitta, when you're trying, then whenever there's opportunity and when we are able, then trying to give, trying to share, so that we can be benefit that, so that we can make the others sentient beings' life a little bit more easier, to be able to release their suffering to some degree, certain degree, or to reduce their suffering to a certain degree when we have the opportunity and when you have the resource and the ability to do that, or anywhere, or when you see someone's success, happiness, when someone's goodness, instead of rejoicing then again, sometimes instead of having a positive thought of rejoicing then, sometimes we could have a jealousy or envy, feeling of not being happy with someone's success, like why is not happening to me, but why that person's, why not I'm success and that person being success, why I'm not happy and why that person is happy and not me, why that person's, why that person have all the good things, excellent things, qualities, and not me, that kind of feeling of that kind of little bit of miserableness, kind of unbearable to see the goodness in others. That is envy, of jealousy. That mind of jealousy, envy, again, is against bodhicitta mind, is against both are vows. Because when we generate bodhicitta mind and take vows, we cultivate mind to work for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we should be more happy when someone's able to find happiness. We should be very happy because that is what we wanted, and they found happiness themselves. It's like you want to help your children to be grounded, to find feet on themselves. And when they are able to find feet on themselves, you should be rejoicing, so grateful and thankful and happy, because that's what you wanted. You wanted to help them to be on their feet, and now they are able to do by themselves. Same way, as when we take a bodhicitta, when we cultivate a bodhicitta mind, when we have both of vows, that's what we want. We want every sentient beings to be happy. We want to lead every sentient beings to happiness. That is the kind of the commitment we make. We want all sentient beings to find a peace. We want all sentient beings to have all these virtues, all these positive qualities, external, internal, all these positive qualities. And when we see in them, when they are able to find themselves, you should be just so incredibly joyful, just like the parents when they see the success of their child. So grateful, thankful, joyful. That is what rejoicing is. Instead of envy and jealousy, we try to practice rejoicing in that. So trying to make such commitments can be very helpful, beneficial. Especially, we can make a commitment, for something, for a week, for a day, for a week, for a month. Of course, we have made these commitments by taking the Bodhisattva vows from now until enlightenment, all of that. But especially if we can focus on one, sometimes certain individuals have more problem with anger than others. Some people might have stronger problem with strong jealousy and, they might not have so much problem with anger, but they might have more problem with jealousy and envy. In certain individuals, that might be the problem. Their biggest problem might be, pride, sense of arrogance and pride. For some, it could be strong desire, true uncontrollable desire, So whatever we try to find ourselves, within ourselves, among all those different negative emotions, destructive emotions, which are more strong and which are more harmful in our life, everyday life, day-to-day life, with ourselves, with interaction with others and all of that, then especially we make more kind of commitment every day, from now until I achieve, I'm going to put more effort not to allow that whatever destructive negative emotion that is very strong not to manifest. I will be more mindful, I will be more cautious, watchful, that I will be more watchful, cautious, vigilant, so that I don't give any opportunity for that mind to arise and destroy myself and others. Even if it arises, I will try all my best with whatever method, practice that I'm familiar with, that I know, to apply the antidote immediately to overcome that afflictive emotion, that destructive emotions. So then we make that kind of commitment every day, to work with that. Sometimes we can make commit for a day, sometimes we can make for this one every day, for a week, for a month, and just really working one particular negative emotion strongly, that can be helpful and beneficial. His Holiness shared a story, I don't remember the year, when he was giving a Kala Chakra, he advised those who are attending that, as having taken the Kala Chakras, make some commitments, of course, many commitments we have made it, like taking the vows, part of that ceremony and all of that, but specific kind of commitment. And he said there was one Tibetan man from Nepal who made a commitment to not get angry, and he made commitments. And then His Holiness said he met after a few years, again doing one of those teachings. And he asked him, have you been able to, His Holiness, remember him, and asked him, how did your commitment go? Not allowing the anger to arise. And he said, he's making progress because he has been working specifically with that. And when you really work specifically with one particular destructive negative emotions that is most destructive in your life, then I think, we are more likely to see the kind of better result in working with that. So, so that is and then 28, I shall cultivate pure conduct, So again, I know. The pure conduct is the basis of all many other realizations, Pure conduct, pure morality is the basis for shamatha or meditative concentration, as well as the wisdom special insight. So, and it's the basis for pure contact. Protect ourselves and it protects others. It protects ourselves as well as it protects others from receiving any kind of harm from yourself towards them. It protects yourself and others. It protects both of them. So, making a strong commitment to cultivate and live our life in pure contact as much as possible. Give our wrongdoings and desires, And wrongdoings, such as 10 non-virtuous actions, that are unwholesome, harmful to others and oneself, such as taking the life of others, stealing, engaging in sexual misconduct, using harsh words, divisive speech, lying, and in meaningless idle gossips and so forth, such, and then the cause of such behavior and actions, the cause of such behavior and actions, such as the desire, the cause of desire and ignorance, that one of the main cause for us to engage into such a harmful wrongdoing, such as taking the life of others, stealing and so forth, through the physical body and speech. And they are kind of driven by our internal destructive emotions. Sometimes it's driven by the desire, sometimes it's driven by the anger, sometimes it's driven by the greediness, sometimes it's driven by the jealousy, sometimes it's driven by the strong kind of pride, and definitely ignorance. So again, making a strong commitment, that I will try on my best as much as I can with mindfulness and vigilance, that I will not engage in any of those unwholesome, harmful, actions, as well as the cause of such actions, the mind, the inner mind, that is like anger, desire, ignorance, and so forth. And with joy in the vow of discipline, tend myself to follow the Buddhas, and then trying to follow the Buddhas, by engaging in, by keeping all the Bodhisattva vows as pure as possible, and training in the Bodhisattva's path as much as we can, just like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have done, making strong commitment, dedication, prayer every day, May I be able to practice just like all the past, present, future Buddhas and Buddhas have been able to practice by keeping their vows, by training, by cultivating the virtue of mind, and by training most of the practices and the conduct and the path. May I just follow just like themselves, generating that wish, praying for that, dedicating for that, making effort to do that. And not only to do that, but, being joyful in that kind of training our mind, training our practice, being joyful, having enthusiasm, joyfulness in our practice and the training of the mind as much as possible. So so I think maybe we'll stop here for today. So we just finished verse number 28, and we will start verse number 29 next week. So any questions or any comments? Does anyone has any questions, comment from today's class?
Yeah, Geshe, this text has mentioned so many wonderful texts. And again, I'm wondering if the Ornament of Manjushri's Buddha Land Sutra has been translated.
I'm not aware.
Okay.
I think most of them probably not.
Yeah,
but,
that's what, yeah.
But I mean, there is one, what is they call Siddhartha Dzongsa Khenze's foundations. They have been trying to translate all the Buddha's teaching that has in Tibetan,
Yeah.
more than 100 volumes. So I don't know how far they have reached that in terms of how many they have been able to translate.
There've been so many interesting titles, and I just keep thinking, "Ooh, I wish I could read that one," or "Wish we get teachings on that."
But also, when we study the commentary by the Indian masters as well as the Tibetan masters, I think it seems like they cover the whole everything that is in sutras. Sometimes in sutra it goes a little more details here and there, but seems to kind of cover the whole things. So anyway, yeah. Any others? Otherwise, then we do the dedications. Again, you can, chant with me, or you can recite and dedicate quietly by English. So, but I will try to do the chanting. Yewadi nyodo da lama sangye gyo ne dowa chi gyama leba e sala gwe bara sho chancho sencho lembo che ma ke pa na ke kyo che kewa nyamba me ba yang kong le kong tu kewa sho. Jigden kandere pende malu ba kang le chungwe sanbe yishen karen chungme tenjen jaso la sowa deso tuje lundu sho. Tuju changxin janggen jawe ten jin jang bebe kun su to poro je cho sum ku we le mo tuju a da so du je wen du sha ten sho. La ba nu cho sa de do wa la jia wa kun le la pe trin jen je. La yang sam xin chou de li ru su chun la ka din ten bi kyu shao so.
Beloved teacher, leading your students toward wisdom and compassion, explaining through exacting discernment the steps of the graduated path. You are the unequaled guide. Please live a long and stable life.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. And your dedication, for your participation, patience. Okay. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Geshe.